but I would like to ask RUNE to open it up with his statement. He will talk about a case where we will be tomorrow at the Norwegian Embassy protesting about the case of an American mother. So, RUNE.
Yeah, thank you, Björn. My name is RUNE FARDAL, and I took a few notes of this Amy case. You can see the picture on the poster over there, and we will probably have a lot of posters in front of the Norwegian Embassy tomorrow. So I went over there earlier today, and I could see that they was putting up fences, probably to protect themselves for human rights violations. Anyway, let me talk a little about, I made some notes on the Amy case, Amy Tyler case. Amy Jacobsen is a American citizen. She was born in the US, where she was also spent the first years of her life. Later, her family moved to Norway, where her father originated from. In Norway, Amy gave birth to her son, Tyler. It was in July 2013 when Amy's worst nightmare began. Without any warning, the Norwegian Child Welfare Service, the so-called Barnevernet, known as accompanied by police, knocked on her door, saying that her 19-month-old son Tyler had to be taken to a hospital for an examination immediately. What happened? In the weeks leading up to the taking of Tyler, the young mother was increasingly concerned about the growth curve of her son. Tyler did not yet want to move to more solid food, but instead continued to prefer breast milk. Tyler was Amy's first child, so she lacked the experience to know that children can develop quite individually. But being a concerned mother, Amy even took Tyler for medicational check-ups 3 times a month in order to monitor the growth process very closely. Her local doctor said that Tyler was doing okay. Then came the summer. Amy went on a vacation with Tyler to America for 2 weeks and visited friends and relatives. But as soon as they returned back to Norway, the Child Welfare Service, together with the police, came to her house, saying that Tyler must be examined immediately by a doctor. Amy found out later that someone had altered the Child Welfare Office or alerted the Child Welfare Office in order to maliciously harm her. Being completely overwhelmed by the situation, Amy agreed to go to a hospital with them. They didn't take them to a local hospital or local doctor as they should have, but to another hospital more than 75 kilometers away. This might even raise wider questions. Also, Kevin M., the Norwegian father of the child, came along. At the hospital, a doctor diagnosed Tyler with a slightly underweight. The boy would have had to weigh 10 kilo, the doctor said, but Tyler weighed only 9.6 kilo, which is actually not a reason for a concern according to weight charts. The doctor also diagnosed a slight vitamin B12 deficiency, and he criticized that Amy was still breastfeeding her son. What followed next was like a scene from Hollywood movie. Kevin, the father, went back to the hospital and put on a doctor's suit. In disguise, he was able to get to the room where his little son, Tyler, was brought in the meantime. He took his son unnoticed, left the building in a hurry, and drove around the area aimlessly, knowing that these might be the last moments with his son. Finally, he was stopped by several police cars. One police officer on the roadside even threw a big stone at the car, which nearly hit his son. Kevin then was detained for one night for attempted child abduction. He was released the next day because a judge realized that Kevin was the biological father and he still had parental rights. However, little Tyler remained in the care of the Norwegian Child Welfare Office. For the time being, the parents still had the right to visit and occasionally see Tyler in a police station behind double-locked doors. But a year later, the visitation rights were cancelled. The authorities saw a potential abduction risk as Amy is an American citizen and they didn't want her to take Tyler to America. In the following court trials, this was also the main argument for removing parental rights from both her and the child's father. On 22 September 2014, Amy saw her son for the last time. Up to now, both parents don't know where their son Tyler is and how he is doing. In order to hide the child's new whereabouts, the authorities changed Tyler's name twice. At the age of 4 years old, Tyler already had 3 different names. Amy has never been evaluated by a psychologist on her caregiving skills as a mother or how she is as a person. In fact, this has never been a part of the entire case. It's difficult to understand how that can work in the Norwegian system and how they can take the child away from her based on these assumptions. Now in 2019, Tyler is about to be forcibly adopted, even though reports indicate that he is asking questions about his real parents and who they are. So that's where the case stands today. And as you see, this case, as many other cases, they lack the professional judgments that needed to be on the table before you can even take away a child. And as you know, nobody have tried to bring him back or evaluate Tyler's mother. This is a one-way run, which is typical for the Norwegian Barnevernet system. They take children, they have no basis for taking them, and afterwards they make up reasons for keeping them. Okay, I think that should be an introduction.
Yeah, next statement will be from MARIUS REIKERAS. On the legal side, he talks about human rights because that's his expertise. And just to briefly say, when you hear the word Barnevernet, that's the child welfare service in Norway. Over here we might say Barnevernet, but this is what the child welfare services in Norway are called. So Marius, could I ask you for your statement?
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank you, Björn, and the other people here for the invitation. It's a great honor to see that we can collaborate throughout the borders and that more and more countries are coming together to fight these obvious human rights violations that are taking place. My job as a human rights counsel is, I've been working on human rights for quite a few years now. And unfortunately, I see that we are facing some really severe problems in Norway with regard to that. The thing is that without international support, I think this would have been an impossible combat to battle. Now I'm much more optimistic. First of all, because the European Court of Human Rights finally has understood what we are facing. There are at least 8 or 9 cases at this moment pending before the European Court of Human Rights. No country in Europe has so many child welfare cases pending before the court, which in itself is a tremendous signal from the court that there is something obviously wrong with the system. We recently, a few months ago, had the first Grand Chamber case against Norway in the court. That has never happened before, and that's also like a very significant example that we're doing something right. We're not like conspiracists or anything. We are people who want to provide for the next generations better options when it comes to justice and when it comes to human rights. So I think that we are doing a tremendous important job. I am very open about, I am in a big human rights conflict with my own government, especially the judiciary, I mean the judges, and the executive, the people who are enforcing the laws. I can only say what Rune just said here, that I have experienced throughout the last 15 years too many examples, not only related to Barnevernet, but in general, that we are facing a system that is willing to cheat with the most fundamental things we have, the evidence. We have a system that is willing to accept official statements without any justifications based on proofs. And we see how this turns out, the consequences for the people who are facing it. I mean, we're talking about irreversible consequences for those who are facing this system. And of course, we only have to go a few years back in time when we fought this war in a very solitary way. Now it's far much better, and that's why it's so important to keep on with the fight. After I've been here now, I probably will go to Romania to ask for more support, because one of the most famous child welfare cases actually in the world, but the Bunari case, was just accepted by the European Court, making it into one of these very many cases who have been accepted. And the court raised two very specific questions in that matter, which you should take notice in. Because the first question the court asked the Norwegian government is that, is there really an effective remedy for the people of Norway to address the human rights in Norway? And if you ask me, of course, I think you know the answer already, because I definitely will say no. And I'm going to Romania to ask for the support for the Romania, this time to intervene in the case as a third-party intervention. I will also personally ask for intervention in that case, because I think that I can provide the European Court with some very essential facts with regard to the fact that when you try to claim that your human rights have been violated in Norway, you will only find judges who are more or less laughing at you. I mean, they will never take you seriously. And it's in many ways impossible for the people who try to address their human rights questions to be taken seriously. So this is a very important question that the Human Rights Court has addressed, because the Bunari obviously could have raised these questions in Norway before Norwegian tribunals, but we know we pretty much know the outcome already. I'm very happy to see that you have one of the posters is one of the cases I've been working a lot with the last year. This is called, we can call the Dubai case. That case is really a shocking case, and because the main reason why the county board in the first place decided to remove the child from their biological family was because they were Finnish Swedish. They were Scandinavian, they were Nordic, but it's stated in the judgment, and that's the first time I've ever seen that it's stated in the judgment that because of the religion and because of their ethnical background, it was important to take the child, as the child was still young, into public care so she could adapt into Norwegian manners. It's actually stated. I'm very happy to tell you now that the children has filed claim to the police against his board leader. Her name is LINDE. I think she should be exposed for that, because this is true racism. And we actually see that in Norway. It's horrific. And they had to, in order to maintain the bonds between the biological parents and the child, they had to move all the way to Dubai. And they had to fly not from Norway, because their passports were confiscated. So they were able to fly through to Dubai through Finland, because they got temporary passports from there. So it proves that we are definitely into a very serious situation in Norway. I mean, we saw that with the asylum case, which my colleague will talk more about later. But it proves that more and more, and that really that what makes me more and more confident that we will try to change this, because sooner or later the Norwegian government has to resign. They have to rechange, or they have to turn the world around, because as we can see now, more and more countries are turning their back against Norway. I recently got back from Turkey, where I had a big interview on Turkish television. And Turkey is upset that Norway can bribe Turkish officials with the money. They can violate Turkish law without any consequences. And they can even, when they violated this law to bring the Turkish child back to Norway, they even put that child into a foster home where the father is a convicted pedophile. So it proves that, and of course, without any consequences for the people in charge. So my final statement is that it's wonderful to see that we are here. It's wonderful to see that it is being broadcasted, and we just have to keep on the road, and I think that we will prevail in the end. And I think that obviously we are waiting for the judgment in the Grand Chamber case with Laban. And there is no option in that case, only to win that case. So, I really hope so. My final statement is that this week was actually a very positive week with regard to two judgments arriving from the European Court of Human Rights. They were not addressed against Norway, but they were addressing issues that is definitely related to Norway. The first judgment was related to a grandfather who had his granddaughter adopted. But even though the child was adopted, the court stated that he had right to see his granddaughter, and it was for the local courts to assess the possibilities for the grandchild and for the grandfather to get together. And that is extremely important in Norway, because we have the same system there, that once the child has been adopted, there is no chance at all to see for the grandchild and the grandparents to communicate. So this is a huge breakthrough in my opinion. The second very important judgment that arrived was a case which also applies to especially Norwegian officials, because what we see in these child welfare cases is that once a public official says something, the judges more or less take it for granted without really relying on any evidence. And that's what the court said, that you cannot just rely on a statement without having substantial proof behind it. So these two things, I think, can contribute to make things better even in the nearest future. So we'll just keep up the pace and move on with our fight against the government. And I think this is one of the most important fights we've had ever since World War II. So we got to keep it on. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Marius. He mentioned this case in Dubai, and that says also that people are actually leaving the country, they flee the country. And another case where a single mother has fled the country is the case that attorney FILIP WOŁOSZCZAK is going to present now. It's a Norwegian mother who fled with her daughter to Poland to seek asylum there, and he was the lawyer. So could I ask you?
And the final was that she recently got the asylum. Excuse me, but in the first place, I would like to thank you for the invitation. Thank you very much. Thank you for the attendance. And as I'm dealing with Norwegian cases only for 2 years, not as RUNE for 20, I'm still shocked about the basis they are taking the child to the custody. For example, as you mentioned, the Swedish family, it is jaw-dropping argument. And when I first get to know with Silje Garmo case, I didn't believe her. I didn't believe her that it is possible in civilized country to take away child just on the grounds that she, I don't know, abuses paracetamol, or that she is always tired. I didn't believe her, but as I got to know the case, as I got case studied, I talked to Polish families that are facing the same problem. They face the same problem, and they will face the same problem as you all know, as I will know. We all know. I started to believe her, and I noticed that the Norwegian system isn't working at all. So, as back to Silje Garmo case, as you told, she is a single mother. One of her child was taken away earlier, and she got pregnant with the second one. With the other father, they didn't know each other. And the Barnevernet start proceedings when she didn't give birth. It was about 2 months before the giving birth. They already started the proceedings, and they wanted to take the unborn still baby to foster family. She delivered the baby. She signed some kind of agreement with the Barnevernet, and she went to the, as it's called, as you all know, the horror house, the house for single mothers to be evaluated by some professionalist if she's a good mother. And she fled from that house just seconds. It was really seconds before they took the child, because they were going. The police was going to take their child, and she fled to Poland. She managed to flee to Poland, and she got to Ordo Juris when my boss Jerzy Kwaśniewski heard her case and decided to help her. So we started the asylum proceedings in the last day of August 2017. The Polish asylum proceedings first step is before the office of the office for the foreigners, and the office of the foreigners, after quite a lot of interrogations of Silje and presenting a lot of documents, the head of the office didn't hesitate to tell that Norway breached some fundamental human rights in Silje Garmo case, and that he see this, and he confirms that on the basis of the evidence, given evidence, there is a breach. The case went to Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Republic of Poland, and this was just a political decision, if the asylum should be granted or not. In the first judgment, our Minister of Foreign Affairs didn't agree to give Silje Garmo asylum. Why? I don't know why. There was a justification, of course, but this is his decision. He doesn't have to say why. He has to, but he could. There are some other reasons. He can say one thing and write another thing. He told in the decision that he don't see the interest of Republic of Poland to grant Silje asylum, but then we filed another motion, and he fought the case through, and a couple of months ago he decided to give the asylum to Silje Garmo. I think it is very good. It is a very good decision. It's the asylum proceedings in Poland, in Europe, I think, isn't very widely brought. Because asylum, as you all know, is a decision to grant some. It's a political decision to grant some. To grant safety from the one government against another government. It's a strict political decision, and it shows something. And I think this is very strong voice in the discussion in Barnevernet from the Polish government, that even Polish government see that there's something wrong. And in my opinion, this is a clear voice, stop it. And I think the decision, I hope that the decision will change anything. I don't know if you're familiar with Polish consul in Oslo. Okay, so that's thank you for that. That's very nice to hear that, and I know because of your voice, I can hear that you know what happened to him after the decision. So Norway started to act brutally, even on the political level, and I think this is maybe not the decision, but it shows that they are, I don't know, scared, because that was groundless decision and very, very rough decision in political meaning, and I think this thing with European cases and voices from other countries like Council of Europe, like Czech Republic voices, I think we can all change it in favor of course, children. And let's hope it will happen.
Yeah, for those who might not be familiar with the case of the Polish consul, I just would like to explain this a little bit. He was a Polish consul who works in Norway, and he was helping Polish families.
I can finish that if you want, because I can tell the story.
Yeah, because we're running short on time.
Okay, so he was helping very, very much Polish families. He helped about 150 families. He was very, maybe not aggressive, but he was very strict. If Polish children got into Barnevernet, he was always helping the families. And because of that, he was thrown out by the police from the proceedings, and then just weeks ago, he was considered as persona non grata by Norway state, and he had to go back to Poland.
Yeah. And this is something you normally only do if you think that this is a spy for another country, or if he has committed a very severe crime. Pass out now the microphone to Natalie and to Tor Arge. We have met Natalie already in 2016. All of her 5 children were taken over very flimsy reasons. And they always say when they take children, we do this in the best interest of the child. But she will tell you what has happened to her children and how the CPS, the Barnevernet, have actually really ruined her children's lives.
Yes, in 2016 I lost all my 5 kids. Because I had moved too much. They were good in school. I have never had problems with them. They eat well. They were actually role models in school. Two of them, I mean. And I got shocked when I lost my kids. And yeah, it's been almost 3 years now, and my 3 kids are living in foster homes. Now the 4th one does too, and my oldest one got home, luckily, but the midst, I'm not so good in English. The nest eldste.
Nest eldste?
Yeah. Yeah, the second child. He ended in foster care too, but he was running to me all the time. And then he ran to me at night, and then the children's services just took him away. But I'm against foster home, of course, but I did know that he has had it good in that home, so I didn't want them to move him away to an institution. What's happened in that institution is that he was. I need to tell you about my kid first, because he's like a good kid. He had really good in school. He was a student counselor leader, actually, in the last school he was. And so he has a good past with no aggressivity or nothing like that. He's a really good kid. I had many witnesses, and my psychologists, not my, but for the kids that utredet. What's that?
Did investigation.
Evaluated. The kids, they are saying the same as me, that they were a role model in schools and stuff like that. So the thing I'm going to tell you now is that in this institution, he runs to me many times, maybe 2 times a week, or yeah. And then it's kind of hard to tell you about it because, yeah, what's the word? Appellion? Nei, opponerte.
In opposition?
Yeah, he did opposition to the institution, and he get held down many times. And like the last time, it was they held him down for 10 minutes, and I think they need to maybe do. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. I don't think it's okay to like force kids down, but maybe to more aggressive kids. He's only 12, and he was like held down with like this in the ground, and he was running to me, and I didn't know where he was, and oh, it's hard to speak about this. I'm sorry.
Just to give an example, I'm here to assist her. Like my children was removed after my ex-wife did this kind of things 2 years before. And that was emergency takeover. There's a lot of children been taken for very mild correction. And where do they go? And what do they do with them? They would have lost their children. They would have been thrown in jail for what they do to them.
Yeah.
But the parents are not allowed to do it. It's only the state.
Yeah, the man from the institution just called me, and he said, like, explain the situation. And I said to him just the same thing that you are saying now. That if I've done the same thing you did with my son now, it would be like 20 cops in my house, and taking my son immediately away. And I got upset about the things that he said, and the story he told me didn't add up, because the times that he said is different from the things in the report, and I don't think it's okay to like use force on kids that runs to only want to get home. And yeah. So the thing that I did was that I called my psychologist, and she said that I have to comfort him, and because he was really, really upset, he was swollen eyes, and he was really hurt. So I held him for one night, even though I didn't. You're not allowed to have him. Not allowed to have him, but because my psychologist, who also is case sakkyndig, what's
the psychologist?
Yeah.
In his case.
She knows our case from earlier, and I just take her advice, and the next day we were going to the emergency room to get witnesses on what's happened to my son, and it didn't happen just once. It happened many times. So, and he didn't want to go back there. He was crying all night, and he was really, yeah. So the thing was that I just called more witnesses. Yeah, more witnesses. And Esther Solberg, who is a psychologist, she said, "Just come to me, not go." Yeah, and I did. And she was trying to. She evaluated my son and speak to him alone. And she said that we will try to negotiate with the Barnevernet. And they didn't want to negotiate. So me and my son was actually, I didn't want to send him back. It was really hard to send him back to that institution. I couldn't do that because...
What did he say if you had to
he
go
said
back?
that he wanted to die if he won't go back to that institution. So I just have to comfort him. So I was actually trying to do the same thing as Silje Garmo. So we fled to Poland, and we got, yeah, it's so hard to speak about. It's, yeah.
You were stopped by the German police.
Yeah. And it was...
Excuse me, so this is, your case is the case the German police stopped about...
Yeah. I would never have done that if I just seen that my kid is suffering, and the Norwegian Barnevernet doesn't want to do nothing to help him. They were going to send him back to that horrible institution.
To just sum up a little bit, imagine if you as a parent had a child that looked like he did, been through what he did, and said, "I want to kill myself. Don't return me to the mother. Don't return me to the father." If you don't protect your child from going back in that kind of situation, they will actually take the child away from you for not following up the child. They will actually say to the mother or father, "You are the one that has to make sure he doesn't go into a dangerous situation." But now, the media would project this like a lady trying to escape with a child. She was actually trying to save the child, and she was forced into this situation. And if you don't make enough publicity about this, the Norwegian government will try to put her in jail for taking the boy out of this institution. And we should also know this fact that, I think it was yesterday, the major newspaper in Norway said that I think it's 45 of 60 of these institutions are having serious mistakes. There's a lot of drugs, there's a lot of suicides, and the situation in Norway is really, really scary, really, really scary, because the government is also now trying to hide it. And this is not the worst thing that we did since the Second World War. We had Silja, which is a refugee. It's a symbol. And we can hear your emotions now, but you have to put yourself down in the child. And this is my point of view. My organization is always focusing on the child. Yeah. The problem back home is that the opinion of people say that this is the parents' view. They take the parents' position. We are trying to say we don't take the parents' position and we don't take the state position. We're always trying to imagine this boy here from 10 years old. He's trying to escape back to the mother. This is a strong child that wants to go back to the mother. And you are a very strong, supportive mother, of course. I mean, you're strong here to tell your story. It's extraordinary. But think about this child. He's trying to escape for freedom. It's exactly what he's trying to do. He's escaping for freedom. And one of my heroes is Joachim Rønneberg. He was the last heavy water saboteur of the heavy water during the Second World War, and he said something to me. I've flown him a couple of times as a pilot. Remember that freedom is something you have to fight for every day, even with weapons, if necessary. And so far we are using this press conference as a weapon. Pictures, testimonials, papers, ARTE TV, BBC, all this is our weapons today. But if you don't have more open debate, more democracy, and we are still naive, then we know what will happen. It's a disaster missing. And I will end my saying here, the numbers are shocking. It's about how you look into it, because in Norway we say the more emergency takeover we do, the better it is. We are getting in early, so we are intervening. Back in 1942, we removed 772 people out of the home with the police. Of course, they had to do so. But imagine those 772 people, they're scared, just like her son. What is happening? What is going to happen with us? But they travel with the mother and the father, and they travel as a family. And today, 1,650 children are removed, 80% of them by emergency takeover, but they travel alone. They are separated. So every year now, we take the twice amount of human beings and put them into this horror, traveling out in the darkness.
And they lose their language as
lose
well,
their language,
their culture, background, their faith.
Faith, of course. And I cannot imagine a worse thing. I was in Libya once, and I was really scared of going to Libya, a different country, and everything was, even me as an adult was afraid. And I cannot imagine what this young child of yours have been witness to. And what happened? They get to Germany, and they're separated on the border. Another emergency takeover in reality. Have you spoken to him after this?
No.
So you haven't?
But
He's
he was
probably
actually
in trauma.
admitted to a psychiatric institution, because he said that he was killing himself if he was separated from me.
So what we are telling the world now is that a young child in Norway was trying to escape for freedom, and they put him back in an institution, and he still haven't seen his mother. That's the cruelty.
And he's not treated like a human being. That's really important. He's not treated like a human being.
No.
And children very often in Norway are not treated like human beings, because all the effort is going into finding faults and problems that are not even there most of the time with the parents. So this is a big problem. Children do not have rights in Norway. And this is what we see over hundreds and hundreds of cases we've seen. The children do not have rights. The adults in power have the rights to do what they want. And I think this is really quite scary for the parents, and especially the children. I mean, I have a son who's a similar age to Natalie. I have a son who's a similar age to Natalia's. And, I mean, it's just heartbreaking. You know, when I get so close to it here, I mean, I've been writing for a few years, and this type of case, this is not an isolated case. There are truly hundreds and hundreds of cases where children's rights are being violated in their best interest, and if I just think about my son, who's similar age, I mean, it just breaks my heart. And I can't imagine how he would feel being taken away, put into a place that's far more scary, far more dangerous. And this is what we hear from lots of children that come out. They come out of these places and they say, it was safer when I was with my parents. I had a normal upbringing, and yet I was sent in a place and I found out about drugs, I got into this, I got into that, and they end up getting damaged and traumatized for life, being in a place that should have cared for them. So we ask this question, why on earth are all these children that are taken in Norway for no good reason, and there really are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cases that we've seen as a collective group where, you know, the children are taken for no good reason, no compelling reason at all. And so over the last few years, I've been getting into contact with professionals, victims, children and the parents who have had their rights violated, where there's been overreach. And I've put a book together with some incredibly shocking and horrifying stories of from families. But also I have some great Norwegian people here, especially here as well, and in this room as well. I find it quite humbling to be in a room with, people that really and truly care about children and family rights. So the book is coming out in about 2 weeks' time. And there's a lot of professionals in there, from psychologists, doctors, nurses, teachers, lawyers. Many Norwegians have a voice in this book, and that's very important because there's a lot of people raising the alarm, but the authorities are not interested in listening. And in 2015, the Notice of Concern, which was signed by over 200 professionals, which includes lawyers, psychologists, professors, and this raised the alarm. There's a problem here. This is a big problem, and we are taking children we should not be taking. They are, coming from normal families. So 4 years ago this happened, nearly 4 years ago. What has happened since then? Absolutely nothing. In fact, more laws have come into place that's trying to shut out, the children, the families, and for me, when I see this, it actually doesn't just shock me, but I think, do we want this? Do we want this in Austria? Do we want this in the Czech Republic? Do we want this in Poland? Do we want this in Lithuania? It's already started in Lithuania. It's already started in the Czech Republic. It's started. This ideology that puts the state over the family, over the child's rights, has already started, and it's shocking. And we've got enough documented evidence to say that the training and the funding for all of these programs are coming from Norway. The funding is coming from Norway into Serbia, into Lithuania. All of these social welfare funds are coming in. Money, millions, hundreds of millions are being given away to actually, help other countries get their systems in order. But the system in Norway is completely out of order. The child welfare system is totally dysfunctional. And that doesn't mean there's not caseworkers and social workers that are trying to do a good job, but this is not against necessarily. There's some that have never taken a child away in their lives, and there's some actually in the system, social workers working for change. But the system on a whole is so dysfunctional from top to bottom, and so corrupt when it comes to the county boards, to all the court system. It's so corrupt against the child and family. There is no way the family can win in 90-odd% of the cases when it goes to the county board. So this book, I'm really hoping, helps, even in a small way, to give the children a voice in Norway, and also the families who are having their rights aggressively violated. I hope it really does help. So the book is out in about 2 or 3 weeks. It's called Stolen Childhood. You'll be able to buy it on Amazon. And I really believe every citizen who is interested in family or children's rights, or just any citizen right now, should actually find out what is happening in Norway. And maybe this book helps the Norwegian authorities as well, see what's happening in their system. I just hope so, and I hope and pray it helps in change. But like I said, I want to also thank again all the Norwegian friends and advocates for children's rights that have come here. It's really an honour and a privilege. So, yeah, thank you.
I have a comment. Sorry. I want to tell everyone that a lot of the people in Norway, they believe this is a good system, and there is some parts of it which is good, so it's good intentions. I want to make sure that the world knows that in Norway we don't have tape recordings in the court. We don't have transcription, people writing down every word is said. So it's not recorded. That's the kind of court system we have in Norway. I think it's so important that all the politicians and everyone that meets Mr. Ropstad and all those people saying that we have the best system in the world is so corrupt. And I was a lay judge for 8 years in the system, so I've seen how it is to be also like a judge. I could be one of these judges taking a child away. I never had a case like that, but I know that you're sitting there, you get one impression and the other impression, and he's guilty, he's not guilty, and that's what you're sitting there. But we have such trust in the state that you would believe everything. I can take an example from my own case. They put down small sentences. The children are afraid from the father and are hiding under the bed. Okay, next sentence. The children are afraid for dying. Okay, that sounds good. But what is it? The children were hiding under the bed because we were playing hide and seek. And they were afraid for not counting to 100 before I found them. It's a different story, isn't it? And they were afraid from Star Wars. But by putting all these things together, you make a solid impression. And I have tape recordings of corruption. And I know, Marius REIKERAS, you have heard it. You are mentioning it as well. It's about 40 billions of Norwegian kroner is going into the system. It's like a defense budget. And who's making this money? Who's defending it? Who's telling you the lies? That this is an export thing. I agree that it's a good thing to export a system to help and aid families. That's what they sell it in. But that's not what it is inside the bottle. It says something here on the label, but when you open it up, it's not what's inside. It's a fraud. And they're killing children. 120 children are killed or taking suicide in the system. And then you take the parents as well. So the numbers are extremely higher than the 22nd of July. That's nothing. And to the religious people in this, I know this program and broadcasters, God created a family. And what is happening when the state is trying to copy God? That's 666. Simple as that. That's how it's explained to me. I think it's the same. We are trying to be the best. We are trying to be better than a family. We are pointing out the parents as a group of people not good enough. And the leader of Barnevernet in Norway says that 70% of the parents are not really good enough. And maybe 40% of the children in Norway should have some kind of assistance from Barnevernet. So this export Norway is trying to do, I know one word we have said before that we have exported out. It's two words actually. It's Barnevernet now, and the previous one was Quisling. That's the two words of Norway. I'm not proud of my country after this. And I urge everyone listening, because what can you do? I've been in Africa, I've worked in Africa, and if someone from Africa is listening, I would be happy to come down there and maybe be on a demonstration down there as well. Because the fact is that every child in Africa, under the Norwegian standard, would be removed from their family. Every single child in Africa would have been removed from its family by the Norwegian standard. Learn from the history of what we've done. So what can you do, whoever is listening, if you're a teacher, if you're a writer, if you're a politician, if you know a politician, if you have in a church, you can do prayers. Maybe you know someone in like BBC or ARTE TV or a program. We have the witnesses, we have the testimonials. Please come to us, that's what you can do. Find someone, like Stephen Bennett here. I want to thank you so much again, Björn and Stephen, because your effort here in Vienna is now the most, it's our hope. It's what brings light to overcome the darkness. And now it's Poland, and we have the faith in Poland that you don't stand down. This is just the start of it. And remember, this is for the children. There's a lot of people trying to troll us and saying you're telling stupid things, and they're trying to bring down testimonies on the victims. There's something wrong with them and those things, or something wrong with RUNE or MARIUS and those things. But listen to the story. Don't forget. Don't shoot the pianist. Criticize the melody. Remember Natalie's son. Don't forget that now. This young boy have tried to get home since I was 10 years old. He's escaping back to the mother. And this time, She did the only rightful thing to do. She tried to help him, and she assisted him to the border. And after that, he was taken and separated away. I know the Czechian people have called it a Nazi system. Sorry, give me a better word. That's exactly what we did back then. So please, really address this. I have said it before, we need a Nuremberg process, and there's people in Norway, they know about it, they are guilty. And I ask everyone listening and seeing this, bring more media and bring more focus on it, because this is happening, it's true. Thank you.
Okay, one closing statement from Marius, because we're running out of time.
It will be very short. Natalie, thanks for your statement. You gave a very strong statement, but I would like to tell you that what you were actually saying right now is a perfect example of how Norway is violating human rights. Because in November 2016, the European Court of Human Rights said in one of the first decisions against Norway that children, at least those over 12 years, are fully entitled to decide themselves. And if Norwegian authorities knew about that, or if they paid attention to what the court said in November 2016, you would have been in a total different situation, wouldn't you? Yeah. Because your child is more than 12 years. Yeah. And what is the court actually saying? But I think this is good. You have given a great statement that will be viewed by a lot of people. I will definitely bring your statement to the European Parliament and to address that decision. It's called X versus Norway, something from November 2016. Say another example that Norway gives a total, pardon my word, shit about human rights. Yeah. So this is just a wonderful example how this is actually working. They don't care at all, and that's what we have to bring changes about. So I think we'll manage as well. Thank you very much.
Okay, we need to wrap it up here. One final word from our CitizenGO director from the German-speaking countries. Yeah, maybe you can change it.
Thank you very much. So what I want to say is just, CitizenGO is a global campaigning organization, and we have been in with the family, in the Romanian family. Yes, we have been in with big petition on Bodnaria family. We are active with Return Tyler to Amy Jacobson, and I am quite sure after I heard the testimony of Natalie, the next global campaign we will start is on her issue. And so, it's also for me, I'm from Germany, and I realized this incident at the German border, and I was so
it was all
angry.
Over the German media.
Yeah, I was so angry about it, but I did not know the connections, and it's always some way difficult to get into topics when you are not into the connection. So for me, it is great we were able to host you here today, and it was very touching and heartbreaking, and for sure we will not only continue but enforce campaigning in these topics. Some weeks ago, we were just standing, him and me, and another guy joined us in the rain in front of the Norwegian Embassy, where we will be tomorrow, and then we had a second vigil there with some more people, and there is just a movement is going on, and we will do our best to help you in this issue. Thank you very much.
Me too. Just want to thank you all for like realizing how hard it is in Norway and in many other countries too. Like you are saying, it's spreading. Like if I was stand alone about this, it's really difficult. But when people actually see that is something it's something wrong in this country. In my country, sadly, and you guys, all of you guys, are just, you are amazing, really. And you and Tor Åge and yeah, all of those who like stand up for us, people like me. Yeah. So I will just say thank you so much. You guys are awesome.
If I can just take a few words, I'll make it short like you. I was involved in her case when they was on the run and helped out. Unfortunately, it ended up in Germany. It shouldn't have ended there. It should have ended in Poland. And we would have a new Sylvie Garmo case coming up very fast, because I talked to her son, I met him. He was scared to death from Norwegian governments. He wanted to stay with his mother. He was ill-treated in the institution, and the report after report after report coming out saying institutions breaking laws, human rights. Everybody knows it. But the government is trying to sell to the European countries a system which outside look perfect, because the minister is saying nothing wrong, there is a good system, we're helping children, we're pushing the children forward. But when you look behind, where all the reports are coming out, it's an opposite story. It's a sort of narcissistic system. The front look perfect because the ministers say, we only take children we have to take. It's the biggest lie of the century. So remember the word Barnevernet. It's going to be the new Quisling word, actually. So we need to change. We need a serious change. And that's where Europe come in. Thank God we have people like you who make a statement out here, because it's heard back in Norway very loudly. And that is actually the place we have to change it, because the system is there. They're trying to export it to you. And my God, stop it when you can, as fast as you can. Ask critical questions to them when they come with this. They try to sell you a rotten apple. Actually, that's what it is. Thank you.
Just a short comment. As an example today, my job, my mission has been to get Natalie down here. And it's not cheap to get people out in the world. On Monday and Tuesday, all these top politicians and top researchers and leaders of Barnevernet and all the experts that they claim this is the best, they are on a conference, and that conference cost like €1,000, I think, to go there. Just imagine if a house is filled of 200 state-paid people. They go there, they travel there, they get paid, and they sleep in an expensive hotel, and they feed themselves with the lies they want to hear. But we are not allowed to go there. So we need campaigns, we need fundings, we need everything up there. And I know now with Mr. Ropstad's he's so stupid statements, saying that there's no grounds of saying children are being removed without a reason. It's the most stupid thing you could say, because you obviously don't know what will happen then. And at the same time, you are putting in laws, you're trying to get people in jail for posting things on Facebook. You're actually creating a resistance movement. People are now trying to make organized routes, trying to get people out of the country. They're now organizing to go more into the, like back in 1940. That's what's happening at the moment, right now. And we do have to do it, because it's children. Imagine all these children living like her son. And it's also important to all those good caseworkers in Barnevernet to step out and report it, because they know. Many of them know. And if they don't believe it, then we have the witnesses. Then look into those cases. Don't look into the cases where you don't find anything. The biggest proof of this is, I'm saying this as a pilot. When you have to take a child out of a home, because Magne Raundal, one of the leading psychologists in Norway, said this: to take the child out of a home is the most criminal act you can do to a family in peacetime. Like we have to go back to 1940. So why do we then have 1,650 takeovers and 80% of them are emergency takeover? If you have to take 80% of them with emergency takeover, it means that the aiding system didn't work. There was no teacher, there was no family, there was nothing around to help. They're selling the lie. You just have to look at that numbers. Why is this so high number? And why is it increasing? Because they don't give help. They don't ask the family. They're trying everything to don't do that. And I have the proof of it. So the people now still trying to defend and calling us conspiracy theorists and all those things. You are on the wrong side. The history will know that you were on the wrong side. Now it's time to step out and report what's happening. For me, every takeover, and the worst thing is, we can create a good system because, like I said, a pilot, we always land on a runway. We don't try to land before the runway, and we don't try to speed up and run off the runway. That's the disaster. So you don't take the child too soon, and you don't go in too late. That's the goal, right? And if you do a mistake, then you have mitigation, you try to bring it back to the normal thing. They need to work on a total different level in Barnevernet. First of all, they need to do is to take the criticism seriously and meet us. Mr. Ropstad, I mean, why don't you want to hear it? I have tape recordings. Do you want me to put them on BBC for you? Of corruption? Okay. It's fine, I'll do it then. Bring me the national big TV. Now we bring Natalie's son. Basically, he's the one not being here today. Don't forget that. This is about the children. It's not about religious rights or family rights, because the family is important. If you break down the family, you break down the creation of what it was meant to be. And this is what the state is doing now. Norway is doing it. Thank you.